Hello, hello. Welcome back, one and all. We're getting ready for game 2 of our second series of the day for best of twos. The 2-2-2 across the board. And after that first game, I'm expecting another 2-0 if FlyQuest can keep that momentum going. Because when we look at the replays from that game, it is the Jose Dioto show and his bunch of goons in the rest of FlyQuest.
You saw a little bit back and forth of like some of the game planning that it intended to come through from Immortals, where it's like, okay, our top side should be a bit of focus. We're going to get him onto a good foot, then maybe attack the rest of the map. But again, Pretty seemed to be set up at a decent place where there are people from both sides to attack him on either side of the map. And yet it was not his own team attacking for him. It was the other team attacking against him as Jose Dioto created this onslaught in a number of situations. This led to this gold advantage that forced Immortals into bad situations. This was also the first flip fight where like they didn't have all their members here in the first place to really compete, and Immortals always kind of fall victim to this setup where like if they don't have the proper fiend fight setup, they still will force one way or another, and it costs them quite dearly in this situation as it got this massive gold lead. It got Lee Sin off to a massive start, as well as getting the Rift Herald into the back pocket of the team to get even more gold advantage.
And from there, it's just over and over and over again. More gold piling into Jose Dioto's pockets as well. It was fat there, and he was smacking their faces with it.
He was pretty impressive in this game, to say the least. Everybody had accomplished their roles. The problem was, again, also Immortals. It's a team that, like, they don't tend to put a bunch of focus into making sure that, like, the kind of map-wide stuff is set up in the right position. So in games like this, where they're down this much gold, it's kind of difficult to come back in general. And as you had cited during the course of the game, FlyQuest is already good about setting up gold leads to be able to accomplish even more with whatever they've got. So FlyQuest with a gold lead, Immortals constantly fighting even if they don't have a gold lead, it makes it so difficult for them to actually accomplish anything that they need to in this particular case. This was just the kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back eventually, where Fox was able to drop somebody on top of Keith, and all of a sudden a lot of your engage is just gone immediately.
And sadly, for the side of Immortals, I feel like it didn't matter. Keith gets caught out there. It doesn't matter. You're so far behind. You can see this. Jose Dioto sees 3 members of Immortals like, I'm killing Joey. He's dying. You can fight if you want, but he's mine.
It's Jose Dioto could pretty much do that to anybody. If he wanted you dead, you just died that game, unfortunately, as Immortals, the LeBlanc didn't get going, the Lucian didn't get going. The bottom lane was fine to start with, but it didn't accomplish all that much. And the thing was, it was a low econ bot lane where it was like Leandries directly into Morello, which was a huge start for the Ziggs, who really only had to sit there, throw bombs, throw E's, make sure people were cut off from fights and drop damage, and then siege when necessary. I will say I would like to see FlyQuest put them on that timer of the dragon. If they pick up 2 more dragons, Immortals is just completely ruined in that game because they can never find the timer to fight, even though they want to fight. They're not forced into it at all during that game until somebody pushes into their towers, and it took a little while for FlyQuest to really convert this massive gold advantage into a fight win. If they've got those dragons, that doesn't happen as much. They force them onto third Drake, especially with like what might have been like an Infernal Soul, Mountain Soul, an Ocean Soul, something like that. Whereas just taking the Baron over and over again, they were able to fish for fights and get like 1-2 kills, but it wasn't quite as fast. So that very little tiny tweak is all I would have changed about the game from the side of FlyQuest.
Then looking at the side of Immortals and what they can change, I also do want to bring this up. Immortals has not gotten 0-2 since week 4, so 4 weeks back was the last time they suffered a 0-2, and that was at the hands of Golden Guardians Academy. They haven't faced very many. In fact, they're second place for the most 1-1s in this split, tied, I believe, actually, with Dignitas? Yes, it was Dignitas.
Yes.
It was Dignitas that were tied in second place with 8 1-1s throughout the course of the summer split. And going up against FlyQuest, I don't feel like Immortals are actually feeling that pressure, that threat, because this is a team that tends to bounce back. This is a team that, as you kind of talked about, they're a team that like to get ahead early in that game. You kind of saw where it fell apart early on. They set up the play early on onto Philip, didn't get it. First blood ends up going to Philip. Had they gotten the first blood, and even if it's a 1-to-1 trade, I think that works out way better for Immortals to then play around.
One way or another, they have to fix what happened in that early game. Whether it is game planning, whether it is mechanics, whether it is draft, something went wrong on that earlier phase of the game that they weren't able to actually solve. And I think that was what was problematic from the side of Immortals, where it's like, okay, do you play to your LeBlanc because they shut down your LeBlanc? Do you play to Lucian because you don't have CC on top side and they expect you to play Lucian? That's why they had the Renekton up there that was near impossible to kill. And if you play into your bottom side, it's really difficult because you're playing into a Ziggs and a Thresh, or my apologies, a Ziggs and a forget what Dreams played in the previous game. Big defensive.
Ziggs and Leona.
Leona, that's right. So the two of them had played in the previous game. It was difficult to try to play. Yes.
The notebook.
That's wonderful.
Look how full this notebook
is. Almost
is.
Filled, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
2 pages.
Yep, that's it. And that'll be done.
Nice. But the idea behind that is just that, like, you can't really, it's difficult to try to gank, and they can fight their way out of bot lane situations, so it's already hard for the Olaf to get down there. They didn't have a great place to attack. I would have figured that they collapsed into the likes of the LeBlanc, but this game I want them to have something a little bit more self-sufficient. If they're going to leave, like, the LeBlanc on their own, don't pick it as early, and if so, like, figure out an attacking lane, because if you give yourselves the primary win condition to start with, it's a lot easier to execute on as fast as possible.
Immediate first ban, Lee Sin. Jose Diodo pretty much proved how strong Lee Sin is right now in that game, and they do not want to face that once more. And then you see that there is a bit of an answer, trying to see if they can take away Aurelia, another thing that is really strong, and I feel like if a team's going to flex it, it is Immortal.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine that Viper could play that, and Pretty, I'm sure, can play that. So the two of them would be a dangerous combo to be able to give that one away to. Ziggs also being taken away to make sure Johnson can get his hands on that champion. I'm not sure if Keith has shied away from it. They probably don't want to be one as much as the opposition. Even it's something that notes to me, Diana has been really high priority for the last couple of patches and has started to slow down here in Academy in terms of picks priority. I don't mind that because I think there are situations where she's very strong, and I think there's other situations where she's not as good. And people have been like wanting her in other like leagues, especially in amateur, and then it gets punished. And I'm happy to see that our academy teams have picked up that might not be the best idea.
Don't jinx it. I feel like if it gets through, we might end up seeing that round one. Because right now we got the Forest as the last ban by Immortals, really hitting at that bot lane champion pool of Johnson, trying to take away what is comfortable for him, as well as taking away that Ziggs. I like that. They take away the two things that they thought were the worst from FlyQuest and the things that they have the most difficult time countering. But with that, it leaves open a lot. Viego being one of them. We already saw the Gwen being banned on the other side. Diana still left open. And we might even see that maybe Jose Diodo wants to grab that.
Maybe he does. In this setup now, all of a sudden you have a melee champion to work into, so you have a place for the Diana to attack. But this does open up a little bit for Anda's pool if Anda wants to get aggressive into Diana specifically. And that was accomplishable by Lee Sin in the past, but now maybe it is a different champion, something like Poppy's another one, like you said. Yeah, you're shouting out the Poppy as much as possible, but...
Because I forgot about that. I can't believe I forgot about Anda's Poppy. I've casted it so many times that it's always so fun to watch. I mean, another fun champion to watch is Fiddlesticks, and this is a champion me and Crumbs I've been singing the praises of for quite some time. The problem with it is you don't want to blind pick it. You never want to take it without knowing what's on the other side, so it's a smart call here, not grabbing that. Instead, getting the Diana, getting the Thresh for Dreams. This is where you still have a lot of power that's left open by both teams that they haven't really gathered onto just yet.
Nautilus has the selection into the likes of Thresh. This opens up quite a bit because it's like, actually, they're going right back to LeBlanc saying, okay, Pretty last game was a mistake being able to actually get him down that far to begin the game. So they're putting a lot of faith into Pretty's LeBlanc. I still have faith in Pretty's LeBlanc, but it didn't get aggressed against. It's a little harder on the likes of, I think, the Diana compared to the Lee Sin from the previous game. So I would put a little more faith in the fact that Pretty could still take over the mid lane. I'd like the Nautilus as well because it does counter the likes of the Thresh to begin with. But they prioritized the Kalista ahead of time, not wanting that one to be banned away.
I feel like there's more champions that you can pair up with Kalista. That makes it a lot easier to grab this blind. Say, you know what, whatever. We know Aphelios is open. We know Jinx is open. You can easily grab that since Ziggs is gone. Make it so they're going to have a pretty safe bot lane. But I want to see Joey play something aggressive. I want to see, maybe we see the new Tom Kench bot lane. Maybe we see the boss coming into the bot lane. I'm still waiting for something like that because this is a safe bot lane for FlyQuest. Why not try to fight them as early as possible?
You know, I did get to see recently, only because I happened to run into it in ARAM, was the Kalista Brand combo, where you throw Brand in, but then his ult bounces off his body, so he gets the knock up and an immediate 2 bounces onto somebody to throw damage in, and it's kind of nice, but I don't expect that. I only wanted to point that out because it's a cool interaction, is we're trying to come up with champions maybe to play into Thresh. The one that came to mind was like Set, because it was something that used to be played, at least playable, into the likes of Thresh to begin with. It was kind of difficult to get in if you just ran in, but Kalista on delivery for something like that would make it difficult for Thresh Aphelios at level 6, so something to consider at least. As you notice, FlyQuest is taking away the Leona, the Nautilus, the comfortable stuff that usually goes with Kalista to force them onto something a little bit more niche. Alistar is still available, of course, is like kind of the
angle.
Go-to.
It's a set angle, baby. We all know it. We all see it. Just because I keep saying this, it's gonna be willed into existence by me wanting that or the Mundo. But you know that wouldn't work. It's not Senna. Okay, Tom Kench maybe. I'll take a Tom Kench. I'm bargaining with you right now, Immortals. You can't hear me, but I'm bargaining with you.
Interesting. They've got a massive team fight on the side of FlyQuest right now, by the way, because they've got Silas. That Silas gets to pick up, I guess, what would be Callista Ultimate, which is interesting because he'll buy Black Spear for the first time this game I've ever seen before in any game. But also has like LeBlanc, and he's got Viego, and potentially some other. Well, I've seen it, but I've never seen it in a competitive game before. This is the first time I'm watching that combination. Like, you have like AoE from the combination of Silas. You've got it in the ultimate from the Moonlight Vigil. You've got it in Moonfall from the Diana. So you've got a bunch of like CC and damage to come in, a massive AoE to come out from the side of the IMT Academy. And it actually does give me faith that like maybe the Tom Kench comes in as a really good protective tool in that regard.
Give me! Yes, we got it. I told you I could will it into existence.
You willed it into existence. Well done. Very well done.
It's sometimes you just got to put enough faith and heart in the cards. That's at least what anime used to tell me. But going into this game and looking at what we have right now, this is a very aggressive composition once again by Immortals. But I feel like this comp, unlike the last one, does have better options in that mid to late game. Last time, it felt like if they didn't get ahead early, that it was going to fall apart and it all crumbled away. Here, it feels like they have some more options. But this Wukong pick, the last one for FlyQuest, this is a lot of wombo combo, baby. FlyQuest are really looking to see if this mid game that they can be explosive once more.
It really is not only like perfect for the wombo combo, but also Philip is extremely comfortable. It's one of his most played champions in competitive when he was inside of the amateur circuit and things. And so Philip, in combination with all of this, and especially in a lane like this, is a lot more comfortable playing against Viper's Camille when he's trying to be this like split push threat, trying to be this solo carry the way that Viper typically does within these games. So Philip is put into a comfort position where he's able to link up with his team and put a lot into team fights. Not to mention the strength of this team fight makes that IMT, who always look to skirmish, they always look for the bigger fights around neutral objectives. They have to play their hearts out here to make sure that FlyQuest can put all these ultimates together. Also, this is one of the games where like Cloud Soul is going to be amazing for FlyQuest Academy, so there isn't really a bad Drake or a bad Soul that could force them out. So I would like to see more Dragon priority, even more so than last game when that wasn't the timer that had come out. Now it's
you're
much
on the
more
wrong
valuable.
broadcast for this, Dean. We've already seen 3 games so far, 50% of the way there, and we haven't seen any Dragon priority. Maybe we see it this game, maybe we don't. We'll have to see when we load up onto the Rift for this game. But I kind of want to go into the compositions themselves besides just the Dragon takes. Because I do actually agree with you. I think I would much prefer to see more Dragon priority placed for these teams. But I don't know if we're going to see that. I feel like we've been getting a teaser of what's to come in the future of Dragons kind of just going to the wayside. But here for Immortals, for FlyQuest Academy, as we dive into Game 2, these compositions are going to butt heads in that mid game, but which one comes out on top?
That's a great question. I think for Immortals to come out on top of that specifically, they either have to make sure that they're not playing 5-on-5, because the only way you win a 5-on-5 is with Callista and Tom Kench there to make sure you've got the CC to set up. Otherwise, like if you're in situations where it's more like a 2v2 skirmish, a 1-on-1 skirmish, like a 3v3 where like it's split down the middle, or a 5-on-5, 4-on-4, whatever it is, split down the middle, so it's like a couple of different engagements rather than one big one. Immortals does start to look really good, because like in individual space, Camille dominates. LeBlanc dominates because she's able to burst people out. And then also both of them set up very easily for resets for Anda inside of the jungle to make sure that that's going to come through. So they have this really powerful skirmishing power on their own right. The problem is if they're even in gold and a natural fight's going to start off and they have this standard 5-5, then FlyQuest is in a far superior place to just dominate. Also, like trying to find backline access specifically on a Johnson with a Thresh around is not going to be the easiest without like the ultimate coming out from Camille. So I think what we want to see from Immortals to start things off here is actually Rift Herald control more than anything else. Getting immediate gold and putting it into some of the members, especially Pretty, but also I think Camille fits this role. Viper getting that gold would be valuable as well to set themselves up for this kind of divey skirmishy style that might be able to work into FlyQuest. That's the best bet that you've got. So abandon the Dragon on the bottom side, even with the Callista, and put your focus into making sure your gold lead is going to be ahead in the mid game, and that's where you can find that success.
The Rumble's already started in the top lane between a Philip and Viper butting heads early on. Who's going to get control? It looks like Viper getting the better end of these trades. You always have to be careful of that Q damage too. Even early on, it's going to do a lot to poor Philip here. That's why he's gone for this Dorn Shield. He knows that these early levels are going to be really complicated and really difficult to face off against Viper.
They will. It's a matchup that gets better and worse with time, because eventually the Camille, like in the right scenario, I think Wukong can contest anybody, and especially somebody who's talented at Wukong can contest against the majority of champions. So Philip will have that capability because he's a well-versed Wukong, but it's not always immediate in the one-on-one, and Wukong's value really does come inside of the team fights, where he's able to act as like a diver and initiator for a team at the same time to put pressure into people like Keith or like Anda, not allow them access into a mid fight or into the backline fight, where they can start to get resets, start to get kills, things like that. So that's what Philip's real job is just not to lose to start with.
So does that mean that Palafox tethered to Philip, or do you think it's Jose Diodo he tethered to?
That's a great question. Ooh.
Right? That's what I'm like. I've been sitting here contemplating that. Which one did he go for?
You
with
probably
that
tether to the jungler because you're more likely to interact with the jungler. So the passive on like, oh wait, because you don't actually matter about the passive. It's who you're going to throw in. Yeah, it's probably still Jose.
All right, all right. Look at this fight right now. We're having right between the towers. Jose Diodo had to flash away, but at least they're able to scare off the members from looking for that full kill.
That they are. I'm curious, where did the Rift Scuttler end up? It looks like they actually pushed him off the Rift Scuttler, so Jose Diodo wasn't able to hold that one to begin with. So instead, it's just going to be Anda taking that, and then topside Scuttle also is getting pinched against because, of course, Camille is here to pressure into the mid lane, pushes off Palafox, allows it back for Pretty, and opens up mid lane for just like the cross from Anda to be able to go over and get that topside Scuttle crap. So it's a double Scuttle. An early back that's forced from Jose Diodo, a wave hold and pressure put onto Palafox with an early back timing from Pretty. IMT, really impressive, like little setup of plays right there, being able to work off of the back of Camille pulling priority to start this laning phase.
This is a nice turnaround from game number 1, where they made that early play, the early dive, trying to see if they could kill Philip, and it all went awry from there. Not getting the first blood necessary for Viper, but here, they don't need the kill. They don't need that. They already had the pressure, being able to force back 2 members of FlyQuest, and then go back into the mid lane with the minion wave already pushing up pretty far. It's going to make it really difficult for Palafox or Jose Diodo to do anything to Pretty.
Yeah, forcing on a Pretty here is particularly difficult. The 2 members here are attempting to make sure that Palafox can just like walk this wave in, give a bit of time to walk somewhere else, but they're not going to accomplish too much here. It's not even going to deny Pretty any farm for the most part. So this was just movement to allow Palafox maybe another back timer here, even though he just took one just to buy a couple more components off the back of Pretty not being able to do much. He should be able to shove this wave, and without TP, Palafox is going to be a little bit late back to this lane, but Pretty doesn't know that, so Pretty's not shoving right now, which is a little bit of a pain. He might deny some minions, which is nice, just ambiently from some of them being brought down, but the wave is going to be a little bit more difficult to run with. Notice the Black Spear also needed to be purchased. Maybe that was the intention behind Palafox, wanting to make sure he had that tool in his back pocket.
I will have to keep an eye on who Palafox does tether to. I think you're right that it is going to be Jose Diodo, but I would like to see it the Wukong, just because the Cyclone, it's always fun to see that. We'll have to keep our eyes for the later parts of the game. For now, we see a pretty massive mid-wave lane being won out by Pretty, even though he lost that trade pretty handedly. You have to keep in mind, he hasn't backed in a while. It's a little bit of an advantage lead for Palafox, but also having more gold for Pretty.
Palafox sneaking that chain in really cost a bunch of health. Oh my goodness, he found another one.
Oh, Pretty, that was close. Had you not land those chains, I think you were dead.
Yeah, and without TP, it's kind of difficult for him to leave this lane. That's why Joey's hovering and Andis looking for a gank right now onto Palafox. Just try to break open LeBlanc to make sure that she can leave this laning phase the way they did earlier. Chain's not going to hit, so it's not much pressure onto Palafox. They just got to push the wave, though, because the intention here is not necessarily to get a play onto Palafox. It's more so to make sure that Pretty is able to leave on of his own volition.
Look at the 1-1-1. Philip, the Wukong player, looking for the dive. And here's the ultimatum. Who gets it? Philip does!
I want to give a bunch of credit to Philip because that was a solo kill against Viper, and it was the first blood of the game, so he was able to sneak away the additional gold value. But I also want to give a ton of credit to Viper because he played that about as well as he possibly could have. He maybe could have dodged one auto timer with that ultimate, but that's about it, and that's nitpicking at best. Both of them trading back and forth, and more than willing trade, I think, for both sides. But Viper is the one with TP who's able to get back to lane a lot faster, so he's not going to miss nearly as much. A big wave crashing, maybe a plate as well to go over if Viper absolutely wants it. So ends up being a positive trade. It did open up bottom side because there was pressure down there already to be used from the side of FlyQuest where they pull first dragon. But now Viper, the question is, can he convert some of this gold value into more pressure into the Wukong? Because Philip looks like he was down a little bit of gold compared to what Viper had.
Was. Just a little bit extra. You can see a lot of that is in the CS. So you talked about already the massive minion wave that was pouring in to that turret. So Not necessarily massive, but enough so he couldn't pick up the phage. But we got to look at this top lane play, and I got to give so much credit to Phil, the new player trying to see if he could show his strength.
That was pretty. The W at the end there to cancel the E and then coming through. The Hextech ultimatum was quite nice. And again, maybe if you're able to cancel one auto attack or something off a key reset, you deny that auto attack coming through. And maybe that just barely saves your life if you've got enough health off the back end of it. But I doubt even that was necessary there. And knowing that was near impossible. Trying to make sure that that was going to happen near impossible for Viper. So I'm not going to cause that against him. Because again, he did trade off the back of a bad play.
Looks in a bad spot, but Anda is nearby, so they can re-engage. They're waiting out the damage on top of Philip. Philip does not have the Cyclone either, so Anda's going to be able to steal the soul away from the Monkey King. Might even be able to set up a dive onto Jose Diodo. They don't have the health for Viper, so they are going to just push out the minion wave and make sure that Philip loses everything.
I think right there, that's really good. Well, it's really good for Anda specifically to be able to push in this top side. He also was able to cover Viper, which is quite nice as well. As last game, this was bullying from Jose Diodo. They were able to shut out Pretty. They were able to shut out everybody, but now IMT are able to control so much more. You can see the comfort of Viper. You can see the comfort of Pretty now that they aren't just getting permanently aggressed against by the likes of Jose Diodo within this lane, and now Anda gets to step into a positive position on this Viego.
It's allowing so much more of this strength that we constantly see from Immortals, of what they like to do, and you talked about it, even when they're behind, they still like to do it, which is fight, 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 always looking for these plays, trying to be creative, like right there. That was a creative angle. Sure, they don't get anything, but sending the two bot laners on the other side to try to see if they can set up a gank in mid lane is creative, and why we always hype up this Immortal squad, this underdog team that is trying to make sure they can hold on to this playoff spot while being such a strong team.
They're definitely looking pretty good inside of this game right now. Like, your LeBlanc is in a better place. Your side lane split push is in a much better place. You're seeing like a 15 gold advantage, or CS advantage, my apologies, from the likes of Viper. Your bottom lane is still very powerful. That's going to be coming very quickly, where like your Kalista, Tom Kench combo will have a bunch of engagement and a bit of that safety to defend against the pure AoE, like Wombo combo that's going to come out from the side of FlyQuest in the 5-on-5. And now also, again, with the kills going into the top side, their individual one-on-one setups, their like skirmishing setups are going to look a lot better too, as Anda kind of sets up behind Johnson and Dreams, but not going to find anything here. Oh,
or
actually,
because they had the hook land, they're looking to see if they can dive in, but there is still the lantern. Johnson wants to be able to grab it. He's still healing up, but finally the Ren with the spear picks up the kill.
Oh, he snuck that onto Johnson, the double control ward on top of the Thresh Lantern as well. I thought maybe he was going to be able to wait it out if he zoomed in his camera after pressing that Moonlight Vigil from the Severum to pull him like 400, 500 additional health. Really impressive stuff right there coming out from the side, and now they're forcing a mid lane as well.
They are easily forcing. They're looking to see if they can go for this dive as well, but keep in mind that Philip's on the other side. That Cyclone could be huge. He's looking to be able to get a huge flank with the Cyclone. 4 members drawn in with the Moonfall as well. They've got a lot of damage, but here's Diodo is going to be traded 1-for-1 at the moment, with Anna getting a little bit of damage into the backline, but he's still alive, diving into trying to get him. He finishes him off with the Blade of the Ruin King, and he's gobbled up by the Devourer. He's got the shield. He's getting away with it as well. They've got the damage on the Balafox, and they actually get the Ren coming in from Keith. Keith with a heal too. They're still alive. They're trying to be able to kite this one back as long as humanly possible. They got the chains on the Philip as well with the tongue lash, but not going to be able to get the kill. Johnson makes sure they're not going to be able to pick up any more.
Oh my goodness, the combo comes out from FlyQuest. They drop Moonfall and Cyclone on top of the side of IMT, and somehow Immortals are able to make the play happen off the back of that one. They were so close to going down, breaking yet again, but instead Immortals are the one that find the massive advantage after that.
What a play! I am winded after that one. That was wild, and now we get the TP top lane, still all the control wards from earlier on. Yeah, rewinding a bit, going back into that play and seeing how this all worked out. At first, it seems like a great play from Immortals, and then it almost feels like they overextend.
It's like the initial engagement from Viper doesn't quite stick, and then this big AoE fight comes through. But the biggest thing of all these is that Viper does go down, but Anda gets a reset in the mid stack because Pretty found Jose Diodo, which allowed him to continue fighting further in. And the longer Viego gets to go, the better. And then, of course, the new Tom Kench ultimate after the W that caught through was able to get him out. Keith is able to pull an additional member and throws everybody back. And you see how hard it is to kill members when you put these pieces together. I hadn't realized it with Tom Kench and with the Fates Call, and with LeBlanc having all this much safety, even a full engagement like that, if it doesn't burst out every member as fast as possible, there's still potential for Immortals to come back inside of the fight. That is really difficult for the side of FlyQuest to deal with if their damage, if their gold isn't high enough. So now, this gold advantage from the side of Immortals is looking even better, because it's harder for this initial engagement to really burst out enough members to kill off anybody.
Here we are seeing a team prioritizing those dragons. You're finally seeing it. FlyQuest are the team that are trying to make sure they can rush the soul and be the ones to be able to force these calls earlier on from Immortals. But at the moment, they are pretty far behind, and they have to be so cautious, because we rewind back to that last fight, and you think how close so many of those members of Immortals were to dying. But the fact that they nearly all lived outside of Viper means there's no extra gold picked up by FlyQuest, so they continue to tumble further down.
That they do. Now, Tower's going to get down as well. It's going to be given over. Viego's able to pull some, but Keith was there as well to pull some additional gold. And this is what I wanted to see from Immortals. While, yes, 2 dragons have gone to the side of FlyQuest, which I can appreciate, because, again, their dragon stacking is pretty powerful for a team with a composition the way they do, especially if it's Cloud Break. The eye didn't open up! Oh, that's tragic for Johnson. Yeah,
He's trying so hard.
He really did. He was trying to bust it open, but he wasn't quite able to. He needs one of those like claw pincers that you get in the restaurants to make sure he eats lobster next time, maybe. But
I mean, it is just an oversized crab, isn't
it? Is that all that Shelly is to you? It's just an oversized crab?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess you hate us. That's fine. That's perfectly
No,
acceptable.
I love crabs. I'm not. Hey, are you saying
fair.
I don't like crabs? I can like crabs.
You
Crabs are
don't.
cool.
That's fair.
They're tasty too. But anyway, going back into this one. Oh, Philip, ow. That is not looking pretty. And now look at Immortals. They are sending over pretty to see if they can look for this. Not going to be able to get the Abyssal Voyage knock up on top of FlyQuest, but they can just turn around and see if they can take down more structures.
Yeah, I made notice that, of course, like, if you look at, like, win conditions set out with the Dragons versus Rift Herald, the early gold advantage for Immortals, it doubles as 2 things, because the Rift Herald is able to get you turret plates and gold, which is both good, but then Immortals also love to fight. So when you're stacking Dragons, they're going to have to contest at some point, be it 3rd, 4th Dragon, something like that. With a gold advantage, you usually can win those fights, especially for the side of Immortals who do it so often, and that's what makes it so dangerous here, that this is the win condition that's been opted for by FlyQuest without the contest of having equal gold at this point in the game, because now, like, your threat of taking these dragons doesn't mean as much, because you're under the fear that you're actually going to get run down. I don't know how Philip got into this position, but he is in really dire straits.
He thought it was just Keith. He thought they all left. He thought he was safe. You ain't safe here, Monkey King. They're looking to see if they can end your voyage or try to be able to get away. They might be able to chase him down. Look at Pretty. Pretty's on the other side. There's no escape. We know what LeBlanc does. All you gotta do is land a couple of abilities, and you're gonna be able to pick up the kill. But the top side, we actually see that there's a solo kill coming in from Viper. 1v2 was able to take down Palafox, making sure that nothing happens. They only lose the mid lane while getting a turret themselves and 2 kills across the board.
But they do. I love the commitment of Johnson and Dreams to the mid tower. You saw them doing that once the play on bottom side was committed to, and so much time got stalled by Philip by forcing them to stay down there by, like, engaging into, like, weird territory. But how about Viper soaking the gank on top side? That would have been the advantage that they could have pulled by responding to that bottom side play, pulling a kill and also a top tower alongside mid tower. Because Viper outplays that scenario, it actually gives the gold back into the advantage of IMT, where they trade 1 tower for 1 tower, they end up pulling an additional kill, and they set up some vision around bot side to boot to make sure that they can contest around the next dragon. All of these things bode very positively for Immortals, who currently sit 5,000 gold ahead in this game, around what will be dragon win condition for FlyQuest, who might have to stop that stacking temporarily to try to get themselves back into this one.
This is so critical for Immortals, not just with how the game itself is and trying to be able to draw this game back in for a 1-1 victory, but they pretty much are forced to win this. They saw the 2-0 earlier in this day from Evil Geniuses, and they know they got one rough schedule to finish off the rest of the split, so every single victory counts as they try to retain that playoff spot.
It does. I can appreciate that they've lit a fire under themselves after what happened in game number 1, because this is a competitive roster. You know how many of them really desperately have been to or want to be back at the LCS level in terms of their level of play. It's definitely there. You can see it inside of them. This was an LCS roster as Jose Adio goes for his own play.
And then the Moonlight Vigil as well from Johnson to try to see if he can kill Viper, but you just can't do it. The Ren on the other side of the wall, but now Johnson in bad spot had to flash away to be able to escape, but look at the damage coming in on top of him from Viper. Was able to heal up just a little bit, but they might be able to get a little bit more if they continue this chase. There's the Fate's Goal, the knockup on Johnson, a killing spree coming in. Philip, you're not able to get enough of a Cyclone, even though you ride the Gravy Train back to the team. Look at the damage on top of him. Just needed to be able to get one more Ren double kill for Keith.
Nicely played from the side of Immortals, and even better is they can get to continue the chase. They have such long
Anda's on the other
engage
side.
range.
Look at Anda. He's here. Jose Diota, do you have a way to be able to get out of this one? I don't think so. Even with the turret, the Heartbreaker damage on top of him, and Dreams for Joey to be able to take him down.
Well played, man. Like I said, right before we had started into that second version of the engagement, they have so much engage range to work with. You think about how far LeBlanc can travel to make sure to attach chains. You think about the Fate's Call being able to throw in after the Tom Kench W's in, or even afterwards the Tom Kench W in after the Fate's Call coming through. Viper with the hook shots coming over the walls and things. It's so hard to pure disengage on the side of FlyQuest without having the ability. So, once FlyQuest is in on a fight, they are really in on a fight. They have to win it, or they're just going to get run down over time unless they have Johnson on a strong enough thing to be able to kill people as they come in one-on-one. And right now, that is not the case. So FlyQuest being down this gold is really punishing them very heavily in this game.
Especially because the members that they need to have that gold, Jose Dioto and Johnson, just have none compared to their opposition. You can see how much gold Keith is able to now have, completing that Brunon's Hurricane with the Immortal Shield Bow to already make him so difficult to kill. And even looking top lane, looking jungle, looking mid lane for the side of Immortals. So many of these players are far ahead. It's pretty much a turn of fate from last game. What we saw previously, even right here. Pretty, though, looking like he wanted to have a replica of the last game, getting chased down. He was able to juke them, though, but it cost Keith's life. Now Viper wanting to be able to turn it around. They're going to be able to get the kill on Jose Dioto, and they can re-engage for two. With Philip still in the middle of everybody, trying to be able to get away. He's got no Cyclone just yet. Holding off, waiting for the cooldown.
Trade 2-for-1 right there. It is a shutdown onto Keith, which is pretty big. It goes onto the Silas as well, which opens up Palafox to maybe get some work done in this game. But there are so many powerful members on the side of IMT. One member going down is just not enough. Even Philip has now overstayed potentially his welcome as there's members behind the tower to stop him from leaving.
Cyclone, here's the TP coming in. Can they get the dive and burst damage onto Philip before they're going to be able to get him here? Here's Palafox. They've got the chain on top of Viper, though, barely alive, shut down by Philip. Even with the knockup coming in from Joey, you're in a bad spot because Johnson showed up for a double kill now into Philip's pocket.
Over-aggression right there cost very heavily IMT. They had a situation that they were winning because it was 2-for-1 overall. They try to force this play into the likes of Philip. He hadn't burned the ultimate quite yet, able to get out as Palafox returns to the fight. So a little bit of gold thrown back into the pockets of FlyQuest. IMT, they know that this is skirmishing. They're always willing to play. Yeah, it looks like they're just going to give away the blue buff as he was trying to take it, but Pretty's going to give it away to him as Baron isn't quite available, so there's not really going to be too much of a chain effect onto neutral objectives here from FlyQuest. It's just the fight win.
But the thing is, Dean, look at this. Look at the swing of gold. That was an 8,000 gold lead prior to that fight. Now whittled down to 4,000 between the two of them. This puts FlyQuest in a position to look a lot more confident. They've gotten gold into Philip. They've gotten gold into Palafox. Even getting a little bit of chump change given over to Johnson.
They need more damage. That's very obvious on their initial engagement. It's like that gold is going to go a very long distance. The amount they picked up, I don't think is quite enough. But again, plays like that where IMT overextend are the perfect way to try to respond to it. You see, again, Philip is just able to stall this so well with the Cyclone comparatively. And the TP in from Palafox to cover is gorgeous as well. And there's two members this far. Again, Immortals, they opt for this fighting style so often. They so often are caught out in bad situations because they look to fight, they look to press an advantage as often as they can when it comes to killing champions off the map. That's how they snowball into objectives more often than not. And so now gold lead getting shrunk is big for FlyQuest. It gives them more opportunities to shrink in the future, even though right there that pure gold amount wasn't necessarily enough. I almost want to see more gold go into the pocket of Jose Dioto just because you need that initial burst of damage off the Moonfall more than anything to pair with the Cyclone. But still, this is baby steps towards the correct direction that FlyQuest need to be heading in.
And at the moment, Immortals don't want to see if they can lose out any more on that pressure. They're keeping FlyQuest pinned back, knowing that those fights can come out of FlyQuest. Understanding now what might need to be done, which means forcing them back, trying to see if they can take away this division and be a lot more confident about these fights. Not just going for a fight just because you see a member out.
There is actually decent, so there's decent Baron take on both sides, but I think it's slightly better for Immortals. So like, they are a team that loves to bait around the Baron specifically for fighting rather than doing anything else. But their Baron take is really fast as well once they hit like second, third item marks, which they're about to hit right now across the board for the most part. So that's something you'll have to pay attention to as well, because there's like a Baron fight setup for FlyQuest is ideal for their composition, but Immortals are really fast at taking the Baron, and oftentimes they will turn off the Baron to make sure that you aren't able to actually accomplish anything, and they're able to take the fight that they want. So that, I think, is what's going to end up being a breaking point, is a fight around the Baron pit that goes one way or the other. With Immortals' advantage, it's very nice, but again, with the Wombo combo, if caught at the right time, if executed at the right moment, FlyQuest can catch all of them in one good combo among the likes of the Cyclone, among the likes of the Moonfall, around that Baron pit. It's not even giving them a chance to turn off of that Baron. So I suspect that there's never going to be them setting up in the pit whatsoever.
That's a Lantern, going to be able to take that, but he did take a lot of damage from Pretty, so they got to be careful. No TP for the Monkey King, which means it's going to be a long time. Not really going to be able to contest that Dragon. But are they going to go to the Baron? Are they going to go for the cheeky Baron?
They just might. However, I think Viper caught wind of it just a little too fast, and so he's going to be coming down here. Nice hook from Dreams to attempt to try to find something onto Joey, because that would have been a nice force opportunity. As Dragon is available, they're going to leave Viper on it. We've seen this a number of times, just having your top laner solo out the Dragon as the rest of your team pulls mid-priority to make sure the opposing team can't really respond with Baron buff that's going to be coming through. So they're making sure that that's not going to happen. Double Cloud Drakes now for this team on the side of Immortals is shutting down the Dragon stacking condition from the side of FlyQuest, as well as giving themselves some additional, like, I guess, fishing tools with, like, Pretty's ultimate is huge. If you can fish with Pretty's ultimate, being able to throw a double ability, it's massive. You know, you still have Hextech Ultimatum, and then you've also got, like, the Spirit, or the call from the likes of Callista as well.
I'm also wondering if they can get a Devour to pretty low cooldown, but right now, Philip, no Cyclone. He's locked down.
He's dead.
Easily sliced apart.
Very big. Oh,
here's the counter play coming in from FlyQuest. They've got a lot of damage onto Joey, and they're looking for Keith with the exhaust on top of him, trying to be able to kite this one back. But as a Callista, when so many members are on top, there's no way to get away.
Force into the bottom side of the map from 2 members is what prompts this out of the mid lane, where there's 4 members readily available. And yeah, like you said, they're probably going to head to the likes of the Baron buff because they have the man advantage. However, Anda is still alive and full strength right now on the likes of this Viego, which makes it super difficult, especially because ultimates have been burnt already on that fight.
Viper looking for the TP, not getting that much damage. It's a slow take here from FlyQuest. We already knew that was going to be the case. Pretty on the other side. It's down to 50%. Palafox is on the hunt, though. He's stolen away. The Fate's calling. They got the TP, and now there's a Cyclone available. If they can land on anybody, it's going to be really difficult, but instead, they completely peel, realizing that both Keith and Joey are back up.
Everything's going to break apart. Nobody's going to go for the Baron buff. And that gold lead pretty much has not changed. It's been about 4,500 to 5,000 gold advantage. After everything's said and done, nobody touches anything. The only bit of information we've gotten about these two teams, we were both wrong. It's Dreams that got the Black Spear from Silas, if you just saw that.
Why
I have
Dreams?
No clue. Why would you put it on Dreams?
You have Wukong. You have Diana. Hell, I would take Johnson over Dreams.
I think maybe the thought is like they have enough engage on their own, so maybe there's like, okay, we throw Thresh in, that's like an additional to throw on top of it. This catch onto Philip was nice, especially with like a wave crashing. That was a nice thought. I'm curious what happened mid lane to cost. Keith and Joey greeted from mid tower.
Yes,
that's what happened. I see. They were hovering towards the Baron buff, and these two went for mid tower, and they were able to find it, which is nice, but then the exhaust slows Keith. He can't get out of that situation. Okay, I was curious how they got caught out like that as Tom Kench and Senex, or as Callista. So I'm like, they have so much safety. How in the world did they get caught? Because they greeted, that's why.
Right now, we're seeing a siege from Immortals around that tier 2 mid lane. Philip going to take a little bit of damage from Pretty over the wall. The chain's going to be able to connect, but not going to be able to get that much damage just yet, especially with the Stair's gauge for Philip. He's not going to be quite so easy to burst down.
No. We will not. It's a lot easier now for Philip to try to get into backline, try to get that Cyclone off to set up the
remainder. It'd be easier if he had Fate's Call.
It'd be...
I'm just saying.
It's gonna be.
I'm gonna be salty about that for the rest of the day. I hope you know.
I'm all salty about it. Trust me. Okay, there's good options, and that wasn't a great option. Maybe the thought also is like, okay, if you throw Dreams in, that's good. You can also throw Dreams out with a Lantern and get someone out of dodge, which is like you don't want to do that, but you can if you need to get Johnson repositioned fast. So, like, maybe that's the intention.
You know what? That actually is...
Right,
okay, look, that actually is probably a good idea, not going to lie. But at the same time, it's a terrible idea, and it should have been Philip.
Yes, I don't disagree.
Anyways, going back into what we see here, we're starting to see a lot of these items completed, and the fact that FlyQuest have been able to hold on pretty much to the same deficit for so long, showing that they are still confident when it comes to their team fights, and as long as they are a unit, it is hard for Immortals to do much. And you can see Joey taking a lot of damage, already immediately pulled back by the Fate's Call. Big cooldown now lost.
He is not able to use it to engage anymore. Pretty has had not a ton of luck fishing also with this LeBlanc over the course of this game. In other series, he's been able to really pop off. We mentioned that in prior series where we've been really impressed by Pretty being able to pull multiple kills. I think at one point he was contesting for some of the most kills in a single game on the likes of this LeBlanc. We were trying to count up to that point.
Yes, I do believe so.
And it wasn't able to happen, but at least he was really close. But this game really hasn't been able to have that same kind of effect. And Teamfights has been really good, picking off members in a couple of situations. But I really want to see this LeBlanc transition into, if someone's in a lapse of vision, find that pick off, find that member and bring them down, because that's what LeBlanc's real use is in this late game teamfight, creating these numbers disadvantages by chunking out members way beyond the bounds of when the fight's actually occurring.
I think the game was against Dignitas Academy as well, where he went 14-1 on that LeBlanc. But I will say this for him: he's still 2-0-4 on this LeBlanc, as causing enough of a ruckus for FlyQuest. You can tell that they're apprehensive of how they want to actually be able to play any of these fights, because they know there's always that potential that Pretty is on the flank, on the hunt, looking for someone like Johnson, looking for someone like Jose Diodo before he's actually able to engage himself.
Game's so much slower than what we've seen in all three of the games we've had already in this one, because we've had 28 minutes.
Down. That's
it is slowed down. Yeah,
it was fast-paced early on. But once FlyQuest were able to claw back and make it so that they weren't so far behind, now things have slowed down. Now it's Immortals, the one playing the macro game, and they will find themselves at soul points.
This is what I'm used to, is dragon taking. And that's what we've been missing all day. Is like dragons just have not been taken by pretty much anybody. And even in our first series of the day, it wasn't happening that often because teams were just winning so fast. They were playing on these timers. Oh, this is a pick on a Philip, maybe?
Are you going to get solo killed right now by Pretty? Pretty looking to see if he can do that, but now that Johnson's on the other side, look at the damage coming in with the Cyclone as well. He's able to flash over the wall, but barely he's alive. He's like, oh no, the burn, it killed him.
You're kidding me. Oh my goodness. Pretty almost finds a pick onto Philip, one of the most important team fighters, would have likely set up a Baron play, but unfortunately Pretty just can't make it happen. The rotation from Johnson and the damage he's got is more than enough to finally bring down this LeBlanc, get that shutdown gold onto the likes of Johnson, and that's a big play. It is not Pretty who finds the pickoff, it is instead FlyQuest who get the advantage.
And it felt so bad for Pretty. It looked like he survived, but red buff OP for Johnson. It's now getting to the point of the game where it is the Johnson game. He is all they are prioritizing. If they can keep this Aphelios alive, FlyQuest are going to be nearly unstoppable, and Immortals, they realize that.
I think there's at some point, like, so at the moment, we have is the Executioners trying to make sure that the healing is reduced onto multiple targets from the Callista. I almost want to see Wit's End go into this build, just because there's going to be that big burst of Silas damage as well as Diana damage that you're going to have to live through. And while you can kind of sustain through a lot of consistent damage that would come out from Johnson or from Philip over the course of a fight, that burst of damage needs to be mitigated in some way as well, just to make sure you don't get popped immediately. You can see Anda's been working on, or Anda, my apologies, has been working on it for the majority of the game, and this should probably come through from Keith as well, if at all possible, although it looks like he's going for Guardian Angel, thinking that the real threat's going to be from AD, but he has to be careful, because if he gets caught by an ultimate from Jose Diodo or Palafox, he will just die immediately, one way or another.
The big problem I have right now for Immortals as well is that there's only one member with that Grievous wound. We're talking all about Keith and how he needs to flex there. I'm looking at the other members. I'm looking at how nobody else has a way to be able to slow down outside of maybe the ignites that both Viper and Pretty have. But honestly, they're just not going to last long enough, consistently enough, to be able to deny FlyQuest, especially if Anda's the one getting caught out like this and taking a huge bunch of damage, immediately forced away.
Thankfully, don't have to burn the Tom Kench ultimate right there, as that out of safety might have to burn it on Keith, though.
That's going to be a big problem. He's taking a lot of damage, and they're on the wrong side of the map, trying to be able to kite away, all the while Viper, he as well, trying to see if he can threaten a flank onto FlyQuest. But Immortals, they got a long way to run away from the members of FlyQuest if they want to be able to escape alive.
They are able to get and to grab that Scuttle Crab so they can defend the Baron at least a little bit. They got to find a back timer here for the Tom Kench and the likes of the Kalista without giving up too much pressure so that the turn onto Baron can be immediate from FlyQuest. Doesn't seem like they've been able to actually count this out. So they're walking into the jungle, making sure that there's vision to be put down to track if they're going to come in and contest against the Baron. So if this full reset comes through from the side of FlyQuest, it likely means that they're going for a contest either into the next dragon or into this Baron pit immediately after the response comes through from Immortals. So keep an eye on where Immortals puts their wards down, because there's 2 places on the map to attack right here for FlyQuest, who clearly are willing and ready to fight now with this 3-item Aphelios.
And here it actually feels like Cloud Dragon the Cloud Dragon Soul, mind you, is going to be really important. We've seen how many times these 2 teams are trying to out-rotate one another. They're constantly moving around the map, trying to be able to get that angle, get that edge over their opponent. But if there's a soul on the side of Immortals, it's going to make it that much easier to control and contain FlyQuest.
Yeah. You also have the side lane pressure, which is something we haven't talked about too much, because Camille did kind of change a bit into a bit more. Notice, if you will, LeBlanc is actually hovering this right now to make sure the pick on a Philip might actually exist. Spotted it out on the clone, though.
But look at Viper,
Baron.
look at Pretty. The Baron's been pinged, but right now, Immortals are starting to crack the base. I think you just keep Pretty here. You sack the Baron.
100%.
Look at the damage coming in from Viper right now on top of Philip. If you keep Pretty here, unless you really think you can contest, it is a slow Baron take coming in from FlyQuest. It's only at 50% still, while Viper was able to open up the inhibitor. We jumped over here, and it's still taking a long, long time for FlyQuest. They're struggling to be able to get this objective quickly enough. All the while, Immortals, they are threatening. They want to have this fight. Palafox, he's got himself in a bad spot against Pretty, getting a lot of damage on top of him. It's going to be the smite secured for the side of Jose Diodo. Now the fight re-engage coming in from them. Can they get connected? They could not. They try to see if they can re-engage, but Anda's on the other side taking a lot of damage, trying to be able to get away. But the Moonfall gets a lot of damage on top of Joey with the Moonlight Vigil as well to take out the Tom Kench.
Okay. We have the Baron sacked. There was like a little hesitation here. I think Immortals, they knew that this was likely going to come through, maybe trying to like force a fight or force something. I think at some point Viper's TP got canceled as well by Philip with that Cyclone, which caused them to have to leave. So now Dragon also is something to consider, because they have the Rend on the
They've got a lot of Rends on this. That's a lot of chains on top of it. They're going to be able to get the soul, but now it's Viper in the middle of 3 members. Getting a lot of damage on top of Johnson, but he's alive. He survives, and Viper is shut down.
Okay, IMT now pull both bottom inhibitor and also Cloud Soul, which is 40% reduction of your ultimate cooldown, as well as having a bunch of movement speed in your back pocket. But it's clear that FlyQuest is extremely dangerous with the carries that they have right now on the gold values they've got right now. I don't think Immortals can't fight, but I think it's really hard right now to try to find an engagement into the right setup from FlyQuest. You have to find your own footing for Immortals to attack. You can't just wildly win anything right now if they don't just end the game right here, because they've got Baron buff. They don't have enough time on Viper. They should just take mid inhibitor to equal out that bottom side and then play a little bit more slow, because right now it seems like scaling is going in their favor.
There they go. I was about to say, are they going to really commit for that one? They had the TP advantage from Philip if need be, but instead they want to get as much gold as humanly possible so they can get this recall. These fights have been on a knife's edge, and they have been down nearly 5,000 gold for the past 15 minutes.
It's been something. It's been something for FlyQuest to be able to actually deny everything that has come through from Immortals. There hasn't been a ton of forcing. The side lane split push has gotten a bit for Viper, but that's about it, because FlyQuest is willing and ready to take fights. They said that from minute one with this composition. They said to themselves, they said, okay, we're going to put together a massive AoE composition that's going to fit together and be very easy to play into a team that doesn't have a bunch of ways to deny those access to this fight. This is the play that came through. I think Immortals probably could have just leaned more so into trying to play the top side. I think if Pretty had hovered there, maybe you can even get a Nexus tower if you're really, really tenacious. But unfortunately, they made the decision to make this like kind of engagement here. They have to save eventually what is Keith, who tries to actually put enough spears into Palafox to make a play, but unfortunately it's just going to cost Joey summoner spells as well as defense, and then everybody else is around, so now Baron buff is more than available. So thankfully off the back end, they didn't lose the Cloud Dragon, because Cloud Soul is perhaps the one reprieve they did get off the back of this situation, is when Baron's gone, at least they have that to their name, is those free stats that come through from Matt, even though it's not the perfect soul to kind of hang your hat on.
And I am looking at this game as a backdoor potential game for Immortals. Even though now the gold lead for them is only 2,000, they still retain that. And like you said, They have the Cloud Dragon, so with 4 Cloud Dragons on top of that, that is a lot of extra cooldown reduction they get on their ults, but they have to be cautious. They can't just let FlyQuest destroy their base.
No, they cannot. And now they've got 4 members into this top side. Oh, goodness me. Okay, there's a flank around the side from the likes of Viper. They have everybody else backing right now. Philip is across the map with TP who can join this fight, but around the back side of the fight, Viper's looking for something. I think he's going to try.
At the ward. They're looking to see if they can get anything, but they can't.
They spotted it just fast enough. They spotted it right there. So, again, not a full engagement. It's just going to be the tower that ends up coming through.
Honestly, could they even do that, though? Philip had TP available, and Immortals knew that. They knew that that was not going to be an easy fight, especially now that they've been struggling with these fights previously, with now having FlyQuest nearly dead even in gold.
Okay. They're still fishing for a fight. That's what Immortals does. They always want to fight. And you can see Dreams is trying to deny from that. As TP comes in, they're going for it right here, right now. They
got to do it. They got to force the fight. They've got a lot of damage on some members in the back line. Johnson, he's barely alive. Shut down. They got it huge, but here's a Moonfall to be able to take down Joey. Trying to see if they can take down Keith. They've got Enda, but now look at Pretty on the other side. Can Keith carry this one? He's going to get back. He continues to get away. Keith, how are you doing it? Viper's in the middle, but he's going to abandon him. Go back. Help him out. They've got the damage coming in from Viper. They've got Palafox to go golden, but they're going to lose him to Rampage while minions pour into the base of FlyQuest.
I am so upset with Pretty and Keith right now. Why are you not with it? Why are you not with Viper? Go fight that. You've got 3 members to do. He almost carried that on his own. Why are you not winning that? Why are you pulling out? Why? What in the world? You called that play. You won that fight. Why are you not there?
I cannot answer these questions for you, Rebel Fox. I cannot answer them for you. But with that, the game continues. We must press on. 2,000 gold continues to separate these two teams 38 minutes in. I don't know why they did not continue that, but I will tell you one thing. Immortals were able to get a lot off of the heads of FlyQuest from that one. No more is there a Guardian Angel. No more are there a lot of summoner spells. Sure, some of them are going to come back up, like the Flash for Johnson. But is that going to be in time for the Baron when we take a look at this fight?
See what happens here. First off, like, Viper getting into backline was a ton of damage to work with, and Johnson going down is perhaps the savior of this fight, despite the Cyclone and the Moonfall going through at the same time. So, Pretty had to leave almost immediately because he went down. Keith kites around the backside of the fight. What happens here? You're not even going to push mid lane if you're Pretty right now. You're not going to push mid lane if you're Keith. You have a wave there. Like,
Viper.
Neither one of them stay with Viper, which they probably should have done. At least Keith should have stayed around that area because he knew he was reviving with Guardian Angel, and he nearly carried that 2v1. But you don't even sit mid lane to pull mid tower, man. Like, that is just... that's way too protective. They're way too defensive, given the fact that that fight went as well as it did.
I think they just didn't expect that Viper was going to do as much as he did in that fight. They lost faith. They saw that maybe it was going to be all null and void, but now they are the ones to start off the Baron, and we know how good Kalista is. They're going to be able to get it. No! Jose Diodo! He steals it away! He steals away the victory of Immortals, and they kill them off with triple kill coming in from Johnson, the TP in mid lane. Pretty trying to be able to get away to be able to survive, but we know now the game is over. It is all lost for Immortals. They could try to go for the Hail Mary out of Viper, but with 5 members having the Baron buff, Jose Diodo snatches away that victory from the jaws of defeat.
You gotta be kidding me! He finds that smite. There's like full set of spears for a rend inside of that, and they've got Anda inside of the pit ready for a smite, and somehow Tuki, the man himself, saves this game for FlyQuest and is able to get them this 2-0. Immortals were right there, but the savior, Jose Diodo, gets the game win at the very end.
Getting that game win with the Baron steal, that literally wins the fight for FlyQuest. Absolutely nuts to see. I thought that this game was going to last another 10 minutes, but the fact somehow able to steal away from a Kalista and from a Viego, that is, you gotta clap there, Jose Diodo.
That's all I can give it. I can possibly give enough praise for that. Not to say that whole game was riding on that Baron take alone, because in the pit, even if you have Baron buff, you've locked yourself in a position where Moonfall and Cyclone and Moonlight Vigil are going to tear you to shreds, and Johnson alone, I think, killed 3 people before they were even done with the Baron buff inside of the pit. So, like, he was ripping through people as it was. They weren't ready for it. They weren't ready to lose the Baron buff. They turned onto Jose, and, like, they weren't able to focus him down. So, there were mistakes clearly from Immortals. That game 2 looked really competitive, and it shows why they've been really good on the back half of the split, the improvement that they've made. But there's still some of that decision making that goes in. Eventually, we're going to get to the replay of that Baron buff, and I want to see exactly what happened to cause the damage from Jose Dioda to steal it. Because I don't know if it was the smite, I don't know if it was like a mid thing, I don't know exactly what happened here. The team fight clearly, though, from FlyQuest, they banked on it really heavily, knowing Immortals is really into this fighting, skirmishing style, and they were able to execute it to a plum.
Well, and that's the big thing in this game, is that Immortals, a team that loves to scrap, loves to fight, had to fight into a composition that was built for that. That was built around making sure, even when at a massive deficit, that they were able to come back. You can see here that they fall so far behind so early that it nearly seemed all over.
The scaling that really saved them was obviously Johnson, and then the fact that like they had this whole team fight comp set up around this big Aphelios that ended up coming through on 3 items was really amazing from the side of FlyQuest, because they were able to put that faith into him and know that he is an insanely good player. Johnson was good well before he came into Academy off of that LCS roster, and it's very clear in some of these fights to be able to bring as it was the savior. This is that fight from earlier that I was driven crazy by, because again, not only not following through on the likes of the rest of this fight from the likes of Pretty and from everything else that had come through, and not having Keith stick around or at least wrap around the edge of the pit or something like that, wait for Viper to stop putting out damage, but also then to just not get mid tower off the back of it, instead to walk in and get Grump and blue buff, just feels so strange to me. It's so weird for them to not be able to pull anything off the map, and then this is it.
Here it is.
I don't know how slow we can get this. We can't get it any slower than that, because I'm really curious. Did the smite come through? Too. Okay, it must have been that the Rend never came through. It was either the Rend or the Smite, and I think Anda did press Smite right there because it was at 1500 health, and that would have been enough. So it almost certainly was the Smite that actually went through. So I think the Rend got missed, and maybe the call wasn't there between the two because communication broke down in that pit.
It's hard with that, too.
It's tough to say.
40 minutes into the game, and it's pretty much down to that. I honestly think if Immortal get themselves that Baron, even if they lose the fight afterwards, you have 2 members that survive. They're going to be able to at least delay the game. But you know what we got instead? We got Johnson joining us for the Verizon post-game interview. And Johnson, we'll get into that game in a second, but I gotta ask, how does it feel to get the 2-0?
It feels pretty good that we got the 2-0, but obviously, like, us as a team, we weren't very happy about the game because, like, we played early game pretty bad, and then we're just basically hoping these guys don't end the game in 10 minutes, which is basically what happened.
Perfectly reasonable. You guys have obviously stepped into Academy very freshly. What would you say, I guess, the biggest difference in play that you see in your games now compared to your games earlier on the LCS stage would be? What is perhaps the biggest difference that you see now?
For us, at least, going into Academy, we are like working on like our communication, like ball lane, jungle mid, and as a team. The difference in like the gameplay, at least, is like we don't get hard punished as much, I guess. So like game 2, we should have obviously lost if, let's say, we're playing against like an LCS team. But we just use it as like a learning experience.
I think that learning experiences are definitely in order for that game 2, because that game 2 was a banger. That was a wild one. But I do want to ask about the comms in that game and how you guys were able, because it seemed like despite how far you fell in the early stages of the game, you worked well as a unit and were able to fight back. So tell me a bit about the process going through that.
So fast forward to the mid game, after we died like 6 times or something, we realized like we already got the 2 Drakes. Well, we prioritized the first 2 Drakes, and so they didn't really have like a Dragon Soul condition this game. And we were just thinking about like how we outscale and that this team is like kind of oinking. Like I think we kept our mid turret for like 20 minutes, and then they didn't really make progress into like the bot turret. But like later on into the game, we're just like, guys, we just outscale. Just they don't get buried in this mid turret. We do outscale, and then maybe we can win. And then I think after I killed Pretty, I was like, guys, we have 3 items. We can finally play the game.
I think that kill that you got on pretty much was like where the turning point truly was, because it seemed like it was difficult. It seemed like it was hard to get back. But once you were able to get the kill and keep it up alive, you guys were able to turn around. So before I let you go and get back to scrims and practice and everything, anything you'd like to say to any fans out there?
to any of my fans or fans out there, thank you for the support, and we're trying our best to get better as a team and individually.
Yeah, and we believe that you guys are going to be able to do that as well. Thank you so much, Johnson, for joining us here today. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And with that, that surprising game 2, a hard-fought battle, but it's a 2-0 nonetheless for FlyQuest Academy to reign supreme and continue to stay on top.
Really insane games right here. Like game 1 from the side of FlyQuest was amazing, but then also just like the ability to come back in that second game after going down so much gold. It shows just a different kind of build for a team like this, which is I think one of the biggest differences we've seen. It's clear that they are fallible in some senses, but I do like the fact that FlyQuest have been able to take a lot of games and been able to be very competitive against a lot of the Academy teams so quickly, especially given that it's a different landscape, it's a different thing. And especially if their communication's improving slowly or improving greatly, I guess, over the course of the splits, this team obviously is a force to be reckoned with.
Completely agree with you, and they'll take that game and that series to the bank and continue to stay on top. But we got more. We got more games ahead, so make sure you stay around. It's going to be CLG Academy and TSM Academy, our last best of 2. Don't go anywhere.